Hello everyone again, this is Jim Slagle. I'm the North America Sales Manager for TRBOnet, and we're going over TRBOnet Plus dispatch and tracking software for your Moto Turbo system. So we're on the mapping page now, as you can see, and the map we're using is OpenStreetMaps. You can use any map you want. We use OpenStreetMaps because they're free and they're very detailed. But if you want to use another map, that's fine. You may have to pay for other maps, but that's not up to us, and you're free to use whatever you want. You can also use offline maps. We have customers that don't even have internet where they are because they're in the middle of nowhere, and they have to use offline maps. Anything's possible. Just talk to your dealer. So anyway, right now I have two of my radios on the screen. You can see Chuck Norris and Brad Pitt, and it's the same thing as we learned before. With the green mean I have a GPS lock with Brad Pitt. I can hover over and see exactly where Brad Pitt is, and the same thing with Chuck Norris. I can see when he was last polled. He's not live now, and I can see where he was. So it's the exact same thing you learned from the first video. It's just now it's on your mapping page. Now I can also make radio calls because I'm still maybe going to be a dispatcher. So if I need to make a call, I can actually hover over my radio box and then say hello, hello, hello. And I can also see if a call comes in from a radio. If you look at the maintenance box, when the radio's pushed, it lights up. So it's pretty easy to see who's calling in. So you can then go open up the box and talk to them. So you can, even though you're on your mapping screen, you have access to everything else. I even have my recent calls and events down here because I like to be able to see what's going on sometimes. But overall, I want a big map. I want to see everything going on in my map. So now I'll go over some of the features in your toolbar. First off, if you want to zoom in, there's several ways you can do it. You can zoom in, you can zoom out there. You can use your mouse if you're using a mouse, and you can also right-click, make a square, and it'll zoom in for you. But there's a couple other things that make it really convenient and easy for the end user. Let's say I'm over here in Nashville and I don't know where Brad Pitt is. I can right-click and say find on a map, and boom, it's going to take me right to Brad Pitt in the center of my map so I can see exactly where he is. I also, if I'm somewhere else, I have a home screen I can do. So the home screen I save whenever I fit where I want my home screen to be. I can save it, which it's very easy to do. You hover over and you say show default region or save default as my default. Save as my default region. So if you want this as your default region, you save it and boom, that's it. So it's very easy to do. And you can also have favorite places saved. So maybe if you have several crews that are out with their radios, and one of them's in Charlotte and the other one's in another city, you could save the other city. Now this one's kind of far away, but I can have save bookmarks. So I can just go to Dallas and then I'm in Dallas. And if I want to go to Montreal, I can have all these places saved, and it's quite easy to save. Again, it's just a matter of when you pick a spot on the map. So I'm going to go to Kansas City, and I want to save that. I just go there and I say save as a bookmark and I label it. So that's how easy it is to save a favorite place. And then of course you have your filters, and I'll go back to my home screen to show where I'm at. And then you have your filters. So with these filters, if you don't want to see certain radios, like let me zoom out a little bit so you can see Chuck Norris over there. So let's say I have 100 radios on the screen, and about half of them, because of shift work or whatever, half of them are grayed out, and they're very distracting because they're not working. I don't need to see them. You can just filter them out, push on that, and boom, they're gone. Now you could do the same thing with any of the other if you wanted to filter out ones that didn't have a GPS lock, you could do that, or with a GPS lock or the indoor tracking. So anybody you want to filter out, you can. And you can even do, if I just didn't want to see Brad Pitt, then I could just filter out just Brad Pitt, but I'm still seeing everybody else in maintenance if I want to. And the great thing is, I'm going to go ahead and push my orange button real quick just to show you, even though Brad Pitt's not seen, if it's an emergency, Brad Pitt's still there, so it'll show exactly where he is, and he comes up if an emergency happens. So I'm going to clear the emergency call, test, and boom, and Brad Pitt will disappear again because I don't have his box checked. But you know what? Let's leave him on there. I want to see him. So that's how easy it is to see your radios, to get to your home if you have a home base, or to go somewhere else, and to filter anything you want. So you can also, if I wanted to know distance, and this can be done in miles, or for my Canadian friends, it can be done in the kilometers or whatever. So I have it set for everything in the US right now. So if I wanted to know how far it was from where Brad Pitt was to right here, let's say, it's 52.94 miles. So I can actually pull it up on a map, and it knows the distance here, so it's going to be exact no matter if I'm scrolled out or scrolled in on the map. It'll know the distance. So really easy to do, and then I can take it away. So if I need to know the distance, I can do that. I can also find things on a map. So if I wanted to find, I could put in an exact address, or you know what, it's really intelligent. I can just put like JFK, and it'll look, what's JFK? Well, probably the airport I'm looking for, and I sure enough am. I highlight it and close that, and look, there I am. I'm at JFK Airport. So I can find an address very, very easy, and I can also do away with once I found it, and I'm going to go back home. Boom, I'm on my home page. So very easy to maneuver your way around. If you need to find an address on the map to dispatch somebody there, you can actually pull up the exact address and then save it, and then send somebody there, and you'd know what their distance is, because you could use your ruler and measure it and tell them approximate distance from where they are. So we also have our drawing panel, and I'll show you how easy it is to do like a geofence. So here's a geofence. We're going to walk, and boom, boom. It's very simple to create a geofence. I save it, I name it, keep out. So then I have a geofence. It's that easy to create one. Now, with this geofence, I have several things I can do. I can restrict radios from this geofence. I can assign radios to this geofence, and I can have it alert the radio if they breach that geofence, or I can have it alert the dispatcher, or I can have it alert both. There's anything I want to happen if a radio breaches that geofence, either entering or exiting, whether they're assigned or restricted or both. You could have it if they go in and when they go out. So you can have whatever you want to happen. Now the great thing is you can also do a large area and maybe do a speed zone. So you can say, okay, if anybody's in this geofence and they go over 50 miles an hour, I want an alert sent to the dispatcher, so the dispatcher can call and say, hey, slow down, you're going too fast. So you can combine different things within the geofence. You can also, maybe you want a geofence not for alerts or not for alarms. You just want to know, maybe it's a trucking company, and they want to know when their trucks drive on their property and when they drive off the property, because maybe they're just getting loaded and then they're leaving. So they want to know how long they're on the property getting loaded, because maybe the average time is 30 minutes. And if they take more than 30 minutes, maybe they're goofing off, and you find out, you run a report at the end of the week, and you see that every day Tom takes 2 hours to load his truck. Well, maybe you need to have a talk with Tom and see why he's taking so long. And maybe it's nothing bad. Maybe he's just slow, but maybe he's taking a nap. You know, you never know, but it's just a way of measuring. So it can be a geofence that you can have to run a report on, but nobody gets alerted, no alarms go off. But very, very easy to configure, and you make the rules for them. Now I created the geofence. I didn't configure it, but to configure it, I would come over here and I would right click and I would configure the geofence. But y'all get the idea. So I'm going to delete the geofence at that point. It'll give me a chance. Did you mean to delete it? Yes, I did. So I'm going to delete it. Now we also have a really great geofence that is called route geofence. In case you've never heard of a route geofence, this is where maybe a school bus company or a city bus company, but let's go with school bus at this point. They go the same route every day, so I'm doing this pretty quick and pretty rough. You'd of course zoom in and do an exact route, but you do your route where that bus goes every day, and you make an exact, you take a right on 5th Street and a left on Main Street, so you do the full route, and then you create your rules for that route. So if that bus drives off that route and you make the rules 5 feet, 10 feet, whatever you want, you can have it alert the dispatcher. Well, the bus really shouldn't go off their route. So if they do, perhaps something's wrong. So what you can do is you can call the bus. You get alerted they're off their, you get a geofence violation. They're off their route. So you call and say, hey, Bob, is everything okay? Well, if Bob doesn't answer, or if Bob comes back and says, I can't talk right now, you can go over here and you can right click and you can go to advanced and you can push remote monitor. Now when I push yes, what's going to happen is it's going to open up the mic to the radio, but nothing happens to the radio. The radio doesn't light up, no bells go off, no whistles. It just opens up the mic. And then what I'm going to do once I open up the mic for a minute, I'm going to push my push to talk on my radio so I can show you what happens if you push your push to talk while you're being remote monitored. So I'm opening up the mic. Hello, hello, hello. And I'm listening in, but nothing's happening to the radio. Now I just pushed my push to talk, and if you noticed, it didn't block the channel. So I was being monitored, but when I pushed my push to talk, it didn't block the channel. So I was still able to talk if I needed to. Now it does cut off the remote monitoring, but you could easily restart it again. Now, a lot of people think, wow, that's kind of crazy. You know, you can listen in to people that you might hear somebody's personal conversation, but you know what? It's for emergencies. Maybe somebody jumped on that bus and they're saying, take me to the airport. I'm really upset. They're yelling, they're screaming, there's somebody crazy on the bus. Wouldn't it be great to know that, so you could direct the police to that bus and you could tell them exactly where that bus was, and instead of something happening really bad and you finding out about it, you know, 2 hours later when you find the bus abandoned in the woods, you could have things happen. You know, it's scary, but you know, sometimes things happen. So there's crazy people in this world. So if somebody does jump on that bus and wants to cause harm, you could actually be listening in, and if they want to cause harm, you can direct the police to them and let them know what's going on, because you're sitting there listening in on what's going on. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, well, there's some room for abuse on this. You know, somebody could be listening in on somebody's private conversation when they're talking to their husband and their wife. But guess what? I told you, everything that happens on our system's recorded. So if you go here, remote monitoring's recorded. So I can click on that and do a playback. And you can hear. So you tell the dispatcher, you can say, if you do any remote monitoring, it needs to be an emergency. We're going to run a report every week and listen to all the remote monitoring you did. And if you did any you're not supposed to, then you'll be disciplined. So when people know they're being recorded, they're not going to do anything they're not supposed to. So even though there's a little room for abuse, you know, it's most likely not going to happen. So, and if it does, you can do something about it. In fact, you could even not allow some dispatchers to do the remote monitoring. You give permissions to whatever you want. So if you don't want one person to be able to do the remote monitoring, then don't give them permission. And I'll show that later on in a different video of how you do that. But so anyway, so let's find where Brad Pitt is. Let's find on the map. There he is. Okay, so I have Brad Pitt, and I want to see where he's been over the last, for you it might be over the last day or the last week. For me, I'm going to do the last 2 months, because when I travel, I fly in a plane and I go to different places, so I don't have a lot of local pinpoints on the map where I go. I'll fly from here to California and from here to Vegas, so I go different places, but I can still do a route playback. So I can go up here and I can say show the route, and I'm going to pick Brad Pitt. And when do I want to do it? Let's do the last 2 months. Where have I been in the last 2 months? So I can push OK, and it'll pull everywhere I've been in the last 2 months and pull it up on the map. And there you go. As you can see, it was a lot of points. That's why it took so long. But I've been quite a few places, but you can see these would typically be a lot closer, because you'd be going around your general area of your radio range. But here I am. I can also see what happened. So I can hover over any point, and these are positions that I was polled, and I can see when I was there, the date, the timestamp, and what happened. I had some emergencies happen and everything, because I'm constantly doing my demo and everything. So you can see, no matter where you go, you can see the date I was there and everything. I was out in Phoenix recently, so you can see everywhere I was. So, and then I want to do away with the route. I can do away with it. I can just clear it. And I can also do a route playback. It takes a lot longer with mine, because mine are so far apart in the distance, but the route playback will actually show from point to point where the radio was each time they were polled. Works a lot better when you're in a local area because it just does a poll position every 1 minute or every 2 minutes or whatever you want, and it'll show everywhere the radio went and each time they were polled. You can do the route playback. So very, very interesting and good to see. And if you want to know where somebody was throughout the day, you could do that. So we also have some things you can put on the map, like if you wanted to put a point of interest, you could add that to the map. It's very, very simple to do. And I'll go to my home screen real quick just to show you. You have a point of interest you can put. You can put an emergency. This is good if you're a dispatcher and there's a crash. You can say, okay, there's a crash right here, and then you name it and you say car crash. And then as you're dispatching, you can tell people, hey, stay off this road right here. 77 North has a car crash and all the lanes are blocked, so you'll be better off to go around that. So it's all about saving time and being more efficient. And then when the wreck clears up, you go to your objects, boom, you right click, delete it. Are you sure you want to delete it? Yeah. So it's really, really simple to put things on the map. We also have a police station, an emergency room, or a hospital. We have the fire department and a house, and then you have some other custom objects if you want to put them on a map. So a lot of great things that you can do and put on the map, so it makes it easier for the dispatcher to know what's going on and know what's in her area. So I think that's it. I guess, oh, one more thing. Oh, sorry. Thanks. I'm glad I thought of that. We also have a feature that nobody else has, and I like to do it from this screen before I move to the indoor tracking. It's called Crash Detect. So I have this XBR 7550, and it works on portables or mobiles. So it's all in the option board, your generic option board. But I can bang this radio and nothing happens because what I'm doing is banging the radio, and then I'm picking it up and I'm moving it, and then I bang it and move it. So what happens if I actually simulate a crash, which would be a G-force and then lack of movement? So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to hit it, and then I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to move it. And then you build in a delay. I have a 10-second delay. You can put whatever you want, but it actually will measure the lack of movement, and then it'll have that Brad Pitt was in a crash. So you can see here on the map, they're red. It's very easy to see. If you had 100 radios, it would be very, very easy to see, even if you're zoomed way out, who's in trouble. And we're the only software that has that crash detect. That's a great feature. It could save somebody's life. So you clear the crash detect, and you can put Brad was fine, and boom. So, and it's going to be in your recent calls and events. You had a crash that happened. It was cleared off Brad Pitt's radio by Brad, and then it was cleared by the administrator, or typically it'd be the dispatcher, and the note says Brad was fine. So you can see everything that happened with the crash detect. So now we'll move on to our indoor tracking. With the indoor tracking, you have iBeacons and E-Series radios. So I have my E-Series radio here, Motorola E-Series radio, probably the best radio on the market right now by far. Like, it's so far ahead of its time. It's really amazing. If you buy an E-Series radio, you won't have to upgrade that radio for a long time. Really, really great radio. So with that, they have the low energy Bluetooth, and you're able to track with beacons that you put out. So you have these beacons out in the mall, and you put them wherever you want them, and then as the radio moves around the mall, you'll see them go from place to place. So right now I'm at Pinky's restaurant, and you can see exactly where I am. And if I wanted to add a beacon, like if I put one in Nordstrom's, I would physically put it in front of Nordstrom's or whatever, and I wanted to put it on my map. It's real easy, just to show you how easy it is to add a beacon. I go on the map where I want to put it, and I put north entrance and first floor. So I have it on the north entrance of the first floor, whatever I want to name my beacon. The beacons have their unique identifier, so that's how the beacons are recognized. This isn't a real beacon, so I don't need to put anything. But so you can see it's the north entrance of the first floor. Now, you saw it just move from one entrance to the other. So as the radio moves around, you'll see it go from one beacon to another. So if the beacons are distracting to me and I only want to see the radios, then I can just look at the radio as it bops around, and I don't have to look at the beacons. And I can have alarm go off, so that way I don't see anything unless an alarm goes off. And we did this for one of our prisons, actually, because by contract the prison couldn't be tracked as they walked around the facility, but if they had an emergency, then they could be tracked. So I'm going to push the orange button on the E-Series radio, and even though you don't see Paul Blart on the map, as soon as I push the emergency, you see exactly where Paul Blart is. So it pulls him up on the map, and as well, he's here, he's red. And what's cool is too, if you're on this page when an emergency goes off, you can see which floor is lit up. So I could have like 10 floors of the Mall of America or however many, and I can see exactly where the emergency is happening. And it's also telling me right there, by whatever you have, the name of the beacon, you name it, so you can have whatever you want. And then you clear the emergency call, of course, and say, Paul is good. So you clear the emergency and everything's fine. But you still have your record of everything that happened just like before. So very simple to use, very easy feature. The indoor tracking is a great feature. And if you're outdoors going to indoors, it's seamless. So as you go from outdoors, you'd have a green signal, then you'd walk indoors, and boom, Brad Pitt would go to yellow when he comes inside. So it's a seamless transition, so you know exactly where they are at all times. So that's your mapping page. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll have another video in a minute. So I appreciate your time, and we'll talk soon.